When it comes to Egyptian culture, everything begins, quite literally, with the pharaoh. With a bit of tongue-in-cheek exaggeration, Egyptian society could be described as a two-class system, the pharaoh and everyone else. The pharaoh was sharply separated from ordinary human experience. An average person could not speak freely in the pharaoh's presence. If the pharaoh was seated on his throne, one did not address him directly. Instead, a person approached at a 90-degree angle and spoke past him, not to him. This physical separation reflected the belief that the pharaoh was divine, not merely human. When we consider the broader Egyptian outlook on life, it becomes clear that it differed dramatically from that of Mesopotamia. Over time, Egyptian religion became increasingly complex, but Egypt itself enjoyed long periods of peace, political stability, and predictable natural behavior, especially compared to Mesopotamia. The Nile flooded regularly and gently, and Egypt was largely protected from invasion by deserts and seas. These conditions produced a far more optimistic worldview. Egyptians tended to believe that the world was secure, orderly, and fundamentally unchanging. Egyptians had multiple creation myths, but the one most clearly expressing this worldview comes from the Memphite Theology, written around 2700 BCE during the early Old Kingdom. Like Mesopotamian myths, this creation story begins with water, and gods emerge from it. However, unlike in Mesopotamia, Egyptian gods do not seize power through violence or war. The Egyptian creator god, Ptah, was not a warrior, but a god of wisdom, intelligence, and magic. He created the world using the power of thought and speech, assigning each god their role through reason rather than force. As a result, the Egyptian universe was believed to be founded on wisdom, order, and rational design, rather than conflict. Because the world was created through reason, it was considered stable and permanent. To maintain this stability, Ptah appointed the pharaoh as ruler over humanity in this life, embodied as Horus, and as ruler in the next world as Osiris. Like the cosmos itself, Egyptian government was seen as part of the natural and perfect order of existence. As in Mesopotamia, Egyptians believed they could not change their political institutions, but unlike the Mesopotamians, they did not want to change them. Government did not need reform. It was already perfect, just as the universe itself was believed to be. This outlook shaped Egyptian religious practice. The New Year's festival was an important event, but unlike the Mesopotamian Akitu festival, it lacked fear or gloom. Rather than mourning the possible end of the world, Egyptians celebrated the continuity of life, giving thanks that the world had remained stable and expressing confidence that it would remain so in the coming year. This optimism appears throughout Egyptian culture. Only during intermediate periods, when central authority weakened, do we see signs of despair or pessimism. Under normal conditions, Egyptians even developed a belief in a happy afterlife, something nearly absent in Mesopotamian thought. In the Old Kingdom, the afterlife was reserved almost exclusively for the pharaoh, his family, and close officials. During the Middle Kingdom, however, religious access expanded dramatically. Temples, cults, gods, and priesthoods multiplied. The Greek historian Herodotus later described the Egyptians as the most religious of all peoples. During this period, the afterlife became available to everyone, not just royalty. The god Osiris, ruler of the afterlife, grew increasingly important. According to myth, Osiris was murdered and dismembered, and his wife Isis searched for his body to restore him and avenge his death. This story gave rise to new beliefs about the soul. Egyptians believed the soul had multiple parts. The one closest to our modern idea of a soul was the ka. Early on, Egyptians believed the ka remained with the body after death. During the Middle Kingdom, however, the belief emerged that the ka traveled to the afterlife, where it would be judged. In this judgment, the ka was weighed against a feather, symbolizing ma'at, truth, balance, and moral order. If the ka was light and unburdened by wrongdoing, it could reunite with the body and enjoy eternal life. If it was heavy, it was condemned to wander forever. This marks the emergence of a clear ethical dimension in Egyptian religion, something largely absent in Mesopotamian belief, where morality did not affect the afterlife. Egyptian art and literature vividly portray this next world. It closely resembles life on Earth, but without hardship, labor, or suffering. Although the soul had to prove its worth, Egyptians took care to ensure no one would be left unprepared. Tombs, when not robbed, were filled with ordinary practical objects needed for the afterlife. For a long time, historians believed Egyptians were morbid because so much of their art and literature focused on death. In reality, the opposite is true. Egyptians looked forward to death with hopeful anticipation, viewing it not as an end, but as the continuation of a stable, happy existence.